Okay, so to start with, as a small language, Malta is a very small place, and I think one of the things I want to get across today is that this is a problem, and I've entitled this talk "Malta on the Brink" because, in a sense, we are on the brink of decisions having to be made at national level, which will either advance or not advance the state of computational approaches to the Maltese language. What you see there is, I want to add the various people who are involved with Maltese, with computational approaches to Maltese. That is basically the people in the country who are involved. So it's a sense in which it's small. That's the team, and there aren't very many others. So it's a small team working on this area. What I want to talk about is a little bit about the Maltese language itself. Secondly, about its official status. I'll finish with something about some current projects which are going on, and then I'll mention a couple of issues to conclude with. So I've got to do this in 10 minutes, and I will try and be fast. So, one of the main features of Maltese is that it is a mixed language, okay? It's a mixture of Arabic and Romance and English. And you can see this by just looking at the words a little bit here. The word for dog is kelp, which is from the Arabic word, which is the same. Whereas carrozza is a word we all know, if we know Romance languages, means a carriage or something which on wheels. So that's familiar enough. We also have words which are clearly coming from English, which have received a new kind of spelling. So the word switch, the word for a nurse working in a hospital, and the last one is okay. All right? And other features are that it's got a Latin script, mostly. There are a few characters which are different, but it's mostly a Latin script, so it's familiar. And unlike Arabic, the vowels are always written. Now, let me just say a little bit more about this notion of a mixture. The Semitic side of the language follows the rules which we see in Semitic languages, so it's based on triliteral roots, okay? And the way in which words are formed is not concatenative, which means that, I'll show you an example in a moment, but it's not formed by concatenating affixes and prefixes only to form a word. Whereas the non-Semitic side of the language, which is basically Romance, is based on stems. It is concatenative, and it's received its input from Sicilian, Italian, and English. We can even see this in the same phrase, it's the same English phrase translated in different ways. If you want, the Semitic way of doing it and the Italian way of doing it. So the phrase, the Maltese language, on the Arabic side takes the word l'ilsin Malti, the tongue Maltese, and on the other side, on the Romance side, we see il lingua Maltia, which is far more understandable to people from Romance countries. To show you how words are formed, if we go back to that the Arabic side, and you see l'ilsin, you'll notice that the word for tongue is composed of 3 consonants and then some vowels. So you take those 3 consonants, L, S, N at the top, and then vowels get interdigitated inside to form various different words which are built on top of these 3 basic consonants. So we can see, if you look along the English column, you will see many words which have to do with tongue, speaking, and so on. So talk, say, uttered. The word tongue, the word languages, the word utterance, and the word dictionary. And these are formed by basically plugging in different vowels into that basic pattern. Okay, so we get a lot of different forms for the same basic idea, and this is going to cause problems when it comes to recognizing words on the page. It's not always that easy to get from the page word to the word in the dictionary, which it refers to. On the other side, we take the word lingua, and you'll see that you can also form many words from lingua, but they all share basically the same main part. It's formed concatenatively, and the stem Lingw is there to see, and it's preserved throughout. Okay, how am I doing for time?
5 minutes.
Okay, 5 minutes. Just another couple of features of Maltese, which I thought I might mention, is that we have, like Italian, we can put all kinds of endings on the end of words, and so the distinction between let's say the word morphology and the syntax is much more blurred than it would be in other European languages. So, for example, here we have the translated form is "I didn't send it to her," where we've got the first part of the Maltese word, "but," is "send," and the remainder is are affixes, which are giving the rest of that sentence meaning. Okay, so again, from the point of view of analysis on the page, there's some complicated morphology taking place there, which is a challenge for us. We see verbs with from Italian and from English, both taking on the morphology of Maltese. Here, spiega is the Italian borrowing, which many of you will know. And on the English side, the word for kick, as in kick a football, is shootja. So that's shooting the ball. And these have then taken on the morphology from the Semitic side, and are now part of the Semitic side of the language. Okay, briefly, the language situation in Malta. Malta is both a national language and it's an official language. So as a national language, it is seen to be representative of the culture and has to be preserved as such. But English is also an official language, which means that laws and governmental correspondence normally take place both in those two languages. In reality, this makes for some difficulties, because there's a strong tendency for English to be used actually in government departments internally. And we tend to see that Maltese is mostly the spoken language, whilst English tends to be the written reality tends to be in English. Even though there are newspapers in Maltese, the reality you see as walking around in the streets is in English. So what you see in this graph is the blue column is the percentage of speakers who speak Maltese at home, and that represents approximately 95% of speakers in the country speaking it at home. So it's by no means an artificial language which is being reconstituted. It's spoken by nearly everybody. So it's very, very widely used. English at home is spoken a lot less. It's the green column next to the blue one. That's the first language of people. So the first language is very much Maltese. Whilst the written language, there's a typical Maltese kind of junky kind of scene, and you can see all the signs in the street. They're all in English, and including you'll see the letters on the lorry are also in English. So the printed reality is very much still in English. Since 2004 then, it became an official EU language. It received a higher socio-political status, and there's been an increase in the awareness of the language as something which has to be translated into other languages, particularly in the European context, need for translators, developments in terminology, and standardization of orthography in order to bring in new terminology. A National Council for the Maltese language was formed in 2005, and I think I'm not going to go through all the bullet points, I don't have time, but the last one is interesting. The idea is to establish a national centre for the Maltese language, which, besides serving as an office for the council, we have the council, but it has no premises, so we'll hopefully get an office for this one day. Will also be a place where naturally language resources might be centralized, so we're looking to do that. Current projects, we have a lot of bits and pieces, so that's the basic problem we have.
And you have only 1 minute left.
1 minute. A lot of bits and pieces. I won't go through all of these, but there are a number of very small projects which tend to last a long time, but with bursts of activity intermittently. So for us, one of the problems is sustainability of effort in a given direction. Let me, I haven't got time for future work, but I'll give you my final slide. So the conclusions are, it's a mixed language in a true sense and very complex for that reason. We still lack a lot of basic language resources. We lack stable funding. And we have something of a chicken and egg situation regarding the users and the funders. You know, the funders say, well, who's going to use this technology? And the total number of people using this technology will always be small. I think we are at the brink because in order to survive, and in order for the language to survive at a technological level, it requires significant investment, and that has to come from national decisions at a national level, not merely by people working at university. So we have to do a balancing act here between conserving what the essentials of the language and modernizing in the face of technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you.